Between 1912 and 1967, over 3,000 British children vanished from their families. Not taken by war, not taken by famine, taken by their own government. With paperwork, with signatures, with smiles. The children were poor. Some were orphans. Some were not orphans at all. Their mothers were simply too sick, too broke, or too alone to fight back. And the state decided that was enough reason to ship them to the other side of the world. Forever. No goodbye letters. No forwarding address. No return ticket. Just a number around their neck, a cardboard suitcase, and a boat heading to Australia. Or Canada. Or Rhodesia. They called it the Fairbridge Farm Schools program. The government called it opportunity. The children called it something else entirely. Kingsley Fairbridge was a South African-born man with a vision. He believed that the slums of Britain were producing wasted lives. Children going nowhere. Children costing the empire money. His solution was elegant, to him. Ship the children out. Plant them on farms in the colonies. Train them to become farm laborers and domestic servants. Problem solved. Empire strengthened. Poor families cleared out. The British government loved it. The Australian government loved it. The Canadian government loved it. Charities raised money for it. Churches blessed it. Newspapers celebrated it. Photographs were taken. Smiling children in sunshine, wide open fields, healthy color in their cheeks. Those photographs were lies. What no one told the children was this. They were not going to a better life. They were going to work. From the moment they arrived at the farm schools, Pinjarra in Western Australia, Molong in New South Wales, Finchley in British Columbia, the routine was the same. Wake before sunrise. Work the fields before school. Work the fields after school. Eat in silence. Sleep in a dormitory with 8 other children you did not know. Repeat. There was no warmth in these places. The cottage mothers, the women assigned to supervise them, ranged from indifferent to cruel. Children as young as 6 scrubbed floors, milked cows, dug drainage channels, and hauled equipment under the Australian sun. Labor that grown men were paid for elsewhere. These children were paid nothing. They were told they were lucky. Some of the children had been told their parents were dead. They were not dead. Some had been told their parents had abandoned them. They had not. What had actually happened was this. A welfare officer had visited a struggling mother, told her the farm schools program would give her child an education, fresh air, a future. She signed a form she barely understood, and her child was placed on a ship within weeks. Some mothers spent decades trying to find out where their children had gone. The government files were sealed. The addresses were withheld. The children grew up on the other side of the world believing they had been thrown away. Some of them never stopped believing it. The physical conditions at the farm schools were, depending on the decade and the location, somewhere between harsh and dangerous. Children were punished for minor infractions, speaking out of turn, crying at night, failing to complete farm work fast enough. Former residents have described punishments carried out in isolation rooms. Punishments that left marks. Punishments that were never reported, never investigated, never stopped. Because who was going to report them? These children had no parents to call, no relatives who knew where they were, no one on the outside looking in. They were, for all practical purposes, invisible. The British government knew this. The Australian government knew this. The charities that funded Fairbridge knew this. And the program ran for over 50 years. When the children turned 18, they were released. No savings. No qualification beyond farm labor. No knowledge of how to rent a flat, open a bank account, or navigate a city. Many of them had never even been to a city. They were simply handed a small sum of money, pointed toward the front gate, and told their time was up. Former Fairbridge children described standing at the gate and not knowing which direction to walk. Some ended up homeless within months. Some drifted into manual work, the only thing they had been trained for. Some searched for their families and found them. But the years were gone. Decades of family life they would never get back. Some searched and found only graves. The most devastating thing about this story is not what was done in secret. It is what was done openly, in broad daylight, with government funding, with charitable donations, with public support. The Fairbridge Farm Schools were not hidden. They were celebrated. Brochures were printed. Tours were given. Dignitaries visited and posed for photographs. The suffering was hidden. The system was not. In 2009, the Australian government issued a formal apology for the child migration scheme. Prime Minister Kevin Rudd stood before Parliament and acknowledged what had been done. Survivors sat in the public gallery and listened. Some of them were hearing an official acknowledgement for the first time in their lives. Some of them had been waiting 60 years for those words. The British government followed in 2010. Prime Minister Gordon Brown offered an apology. Both apologies were given without full financial reparations. Both governments acknowledged the abuse. Neither government has fully compensated the survivors. As of today, many former Fairbridge children, now in their 70s and 80s, are still fighting for recognition, still fighting for records, still fighting for the truth about what happened to siblings they have never found. Some of those siblings may never be found. 3,000 children, 50 years, 3 countries, multiple governments, signed documents, stamped approvals, charitable funding, and not a single person was ever prosecuted. Not one official, not one cottage mother, not one administrator. The paperwork that authorized this program still exists in government archives. The names of the children are in those files. The names of the officials who approved it are in those files. Nobody went to prison. Nobody was charged. The program simply ended, and the world moved on. Except for the 3,000 children it did not move on from. Now here is what makes this story even more disturbing. Fairbridge was not unique. It was part of a much larger child migration machine that sent over 100,000 British children to the colonies between 1869 and 1970. 100,000. Other organizations, other farms, other institutions. Some of those stories are even darker than this one. We have not covered them yet, but we will, because this channel exists for exactly that reason, to pull out the stories that were buried, the truths that were sealed inside government files, and the people that history decided to forget. The children no one was looking for. The systems no one was held accountable for. The apologies that came 50 years too late. If you have watched this far, you already know something that most people walking around right now do not know. And that is exactly the problem. These children deserve to have their story told. They deserved it in 1930. They deserved it in 1960. They deserved it in 2009 when an apology was finally read into the record. And they deserve it right now, in your feed, in your shares, in your comments. So here is what I need you to do. Share this video right now. Not later. Right now. Because every share is one more person who finds out that this happened. One more person who can no longer say they did not know. Drop the word remember in the comments if this story hit you. And if you know someone who was part of this program, leave that in the comments too. These stories are still being pieced together. Also, if there is a piece of buried history you want this channel to cover, drop it below. A massacre, a cover-up, a government crime that got a one-paragraph footnote in a textbook and nothing else. Tell us, because we are just getting started. And what is coming next on this channel? The stories we have not told yet will shock you more than this one did.